Tindaro knows the consequences of becoming a thief, so he chooses the next best thing and joins the church as an artist. He likes to paint angels. He recalls a day when the plague changes everything. A group of people chase Lorenzo, who has just defeated Gerbino, a loser. Lorenzo is cornered against the wall by Gerbino's men, but he fights them off and threatens Gerbino as he leaves. The next day, he leaves flowers for Pampinia, a girl born into wealth. Later, his friends warn Lorenzo that Gerbino is waiting for him at his house and tell him to run. Lorenzo hugs them, mounts the horse they prepared for him, and then escapes. Meanwhile, Tindaro realizes he won't get paid because the priest has died from the plague, so he pretends to be a priest, of course, living among beautiful nuns. Later, Gerbino expresses sympathy to Pampinia, whose parents have died from the plague, because Pampinia is to marry Count Dzerzhinsky. Gerbino tells her he has paid off her father's debts, so she must marry him. He kneels down, proposes to her, and kisses her hand, of course in a creepy way. Meanwhile, Lorenzo outsmarts his pursuers, encounters a cart driver carrying a disabled gardener. The cart driver tells him that the road leads to the monastery, so Lorenzo rides away with his pursuers chasing after him. Lorenzo hides in a tree, outsmarting the pursuers again, but the branch breaks, and he loses consciousness. Later, the nuns approach, take him into the church. As he sleeps, they comment on his beauty, and decide whether to undress him to check for fractures. Then they kiss his belly and mouth, of course, for religious purposes. Someone should send these nuns to horny jail. Suddenly, he wakes up, and the abbess arrives. He pretends to be deaf and dumb. The sisters think he's a fallen angel, so they take him to clean the baths. As he bathes, the nuns become thirstier and clean him. Meanwhile, Pampinia meets with Filomena and Melissa, Guido, and Dianello together. Pampinia tells the girls they can hide from the plague at her father's house in the country, because she's going to marry Count Dzerzhinsky there anyway. Gerbino overhears this and starts a fight with Lorenzo's companions. However, Tindaro, posing as a priest, stops them. Gerbino threatens him, but Pampinia asks if Lorenzo is still alive. Gerbino tells her to consider him dead and leaves. Later, Pampinia goes to a monastery, escaping from Gerbino, waiting for her Russian count to remain a virgin in marriage. She stays with the nuns, thinking it will protect her, but these nuns. Pampinia sees Lorenzo from afar, who is now the deaf and dumb gardener of the monastery. While tending the garden, a nun calls Lorenzo. Pampinia sees this and feels jealous. Count Dzerzhinsky arrives in Florence, meets Gerbino, who introduces himself as the man Pampinia is about to engage. Count D insults Gerbino, leaves, meets a servant who tells him Pampinia's whereabouts. He rides off, hoping to see his fiancée. In the monastery, two nuns start holding hands with Lorenzo, so Lorenzo shrugs, thinking it's just another day in the office. Meanwhile, on the cart, Filomena boasts to Melissa that she and Dionio have not yet held hands. He and Guido follow them on foot. Suddenly, two ladies call them over to try fresh milk products back on the farm. The two think it's a sexual code, follow them, and end up milking cows. Of course, in a sexual way. Holy Filomena, for some reason, hears this from a mile away and catches Dionio. She questions him about the strange things they're doing, and promises never to hold hands with him as punishment. Hope no cows were emotionally disturbed during the filming. Inside the monastery, Pampinia finds out Lorenzo is holding hands with the sisters, so she gets very jealous and pours water over Lorenzo's head in the bath. Meanwhile, Count D, on his way to Pampinia, is ambushed by Gerbino's men. The Count shoots Gerbino's right-hand man, kills him, so Gerbino is envious of this gun and wants it. These men catch up with the Count or the gun during the journey. Dionio has a hot dream and moans loudly, causing Filomena to angrily splash water at him. What's going on with this movie? Back at the monastery, jealousy? Pampinia approaches Lorenzo, blindfolds him, and kisses him. She leaves, leaving Lorenzo confused. He might even be a bit thirsty. Meanwhile, Filomena tries to comfort Dionisio, who sulks in the forest. She tells him she loves him and forgives him. Suddenly, they get heated, and Dionio has a reaction. Filomena, completely oblivious to sex education, feels offended and scolds him. Suddenly, bandits come to capture them. In the bandits' camp, a greasy Alessandro Felice is holding Melissa hostage. Alessandro tells him he'll sell them as sex slaves in Africa. Filomena is terrified of their situation, but Melissa comes up with a plan. At night, Melissa enters Alessandro's palace, dances for him with a pole, while making sexual innuendos with Roman mythology. Alessandro, of course, is clueless but still finds it sexy. On the other hand, Philomena is asked to wear a skirt, and suddenly she sees Melissa return dejected, saying Alessandro just wanted to watch. Later, Philomena and Melissa serve the bandits. They hold a competition on who has the biggest sausage, and the bandits foolishly comply. Melissa and Philomena line them up from smallest to largest and ask who should go first. The bandits argue endlessly, eventually leading to a fight or sausage party. When everyone is distracted, Guido frees the others, but they are intercepted by Alessandro, who quickly gets knocked out by the cart driver. The group escapes into the deep night. Back at the monastery, Pampinia learns that the Count has arrived in Florence, meaning she has to leave Lorenzo with the thirsty nuns. Out of spite, she tells the abbess that Lorenzo is not actually deaf and dumb. Later, Lorenzo is woken up by the abbess, who threatens that the butcher will cut open his insides, causing him to scream, revealing his voice. He still tries to cover up, pretending it's a miracle, but he is soon expelled from the monastery. Meanwhile, Count D is drinking by the river when he suddenly sees Melissa bathing. She jokes that she is a witch in the swimming pool, on her way to a wedding. Completely captivated, Count D thinks Melissa is Pampinia. She approaches him, gets mesmerized by his Russian noble appearance, and kisses him. At the same time, Pampinia meets the exiled Lorenzo, tells him she's getting married, and is on her way to the wedding. Lorenzo follows her, volunteering to escort her. At the monastery, Tindaro arrives and meets the abbess. She offers him a bath. Meanwhile, Lorenzo begins to leave upon arriving at the destination, thinking Pampinia is really getting married. However, she asks him to stay, as they are having dinner. Lorenzo tells Pampinia he has fallen in love with a nun, who kissed him blindfolded. Pampinia asks him, since she's in the monastery, how he will find her and claims he forgot her, but Lorenzo insists he's found true love. Later, Pampinia challenges Lorenzo to kiss her, so that he can forget his dream girl. Just as they are about to kiss, Gerbino arrives, so Pampinia tells him to run. But Lorenzo stands his ground and even threatens Gerbino. Gerbino knocks Lorenzo into the fountain, and then attacks him with a sword. Lorenzo is unarmed and can only dodge his attacks. On the verge of being knocked down by Gerbino, Pampinia intervenes and threatens that if Gerbino kills Lorenzo, she will not marry him. Lorenzo is shocked to hear she's going to marry Gerbino, and he's angry. Gerbino locks him up in prison. Meanwhile, Gerbino tells Pampinia that Lorenzo is in a lot of trouble, but she doesn't believe him. She is walking dangerously by a large well, so Gerbino orders her to come down so she won't fall in. She negotiates with Gerbino, asking him to release Lorenzo in exchange for marrying him, so he accepts this deal. Later, Gerbino's two henchmen encounter Tindaro on their way to the wedding, so they accept that he will become the priest. Later, Pampinia releases Lorenzo, asking him to leave before Gerbino changes his mind. Gerbino arrives, dragging Tindaro along, telling Pampinia the abbess wants to hear their confessions first. In the confession, Pampinia admits she wants to marry Lorenzo, and bribes a priest to delay the wedding as much as possible. Lorenzo leaves under the escort of Gerbino's henchmen, while Pampinia watches from a balcony. Meanwhile, Gerbino admits to killing many people he can't remember. Tindaro tells him that to achieve eternal redemption, he must refrain from all sexual thoughts and activities for 30 days. Gerbino protests, saying he's about to get married. However, Tindaro convinces him that this is necessary for him to realize his mistake. Later, Lorenzo punches a henchman, then suddenly encounters Count D looking for Pampinia's location. They both move in the same direction. The wedding is held immediately, and Tindaro asks the couple some standard questions. However, Gerbino is difficult to get along with, so Tindaro scolds him. Tindaro asks Gerbino if he has taken a bath. He insists he has, but Tindaro doubts it. He questions Gerbino if he has really taken a bath. Tindaro continues to insult him for his dirty nails, and claims that he cannot marry them with dirty nails. He orders Gerbino to wash his hands before the ceremony starts. A frustrated Gerbino does so. Tindaro delays the wedding when he sees Count D in the distance. Fed up with Tindaro's antics, Gerbino picks up his sword, orders him to continue the ceremony, so he quickly declares them husband and wife. However, Count D announces his arrival and challenges Gerbino, who runs away as soon as he sees his gun. Meanwhile, Lorenzo arrives. Lorenzo kicks a man, then swings a stick to get rid of another one. He takes Pampinea with him, and they run off. Tindaro grabs a stick and uses it to beat the henchman. Pampinea and Gerbino come upstairs. He orders his men to grab her, but Lorenzo intercepts her and defeats the men like a true Jedi. Meanwhile, Count D challenges Gerbino in a one-on-one fight. Count D manages to disarm him and threatens to kill him, but Lorenzo stops him, claiming he has some unfinished business with Gerbino. Count D doesn't like the idea, so Lorenzo throws a coin into the well to decide. For some reason, Count D thinks Lorenzo wins, so he hands Gerbino over to him. The two fight by the well, but Gerbino is afraid of heights, so he charges at Lorenzo hesitantly. Lorenzo gives Gerbino a choice, to jump rather than being killed by him, or the Count, but Gerbino attacks him. Meanwhile, Tindaro and Pampinea watch the match from upstairs. Lorenzo defeats Gerbino, who loses balance and falls into the well. Count D and Lorenzo embrace victoriously. Tindaro tells Pampinea he's not a real priest, so she's not really married. Later, Count D approaches Pampinea, kneels in front of her, and proposes to her. However, she tells him she can't marry him. Count D asks in confusion about what's happening, but Pampinea knows nothing and removes her veil. Count D realizes Pampinea is not the woman he fell in love with. Suddenly, Melissa approaches them. Count D sees her, declares his love for Melissa, and kisses her. Philomena arrives with Dionio, asking what happened to the wedding. Pampinea claims there's going to be a wedding, but she can't find Lorenzo, who has suddenly disappeared. Pampinea runs outside to see Lorenzo leaving. She stops him and confesses, but Lorenzo is still hung up on the blindfolded kiss, so he rejects her. To convince him, Pampinea asks him to close his eyes and kiss her. Lorenzo realizes it's always been her, and they can finally be together. Tindaro plans to return to the monastery because the prioress is waiting for him. Pampinea asks Lorenzo to close his eyes again, but he tells her she should close hers. They kiss with their eyes closed.